Joining us virtually from his Abuja residence is Dr. Aliu Elias to discuss these stories. Hello, Doctor. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Doctor, this morning we're seeing growing calls from the civil space condemning the arrest of protesters, particularly from the decision of the court to remand Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer, Ejimako, his brother, and about 10 others in prison following their involvements in the protests that rocked Abuja and some parts of the country on Monday. What do you make of this development and the freedom to protest in Nigeria, which seems to be losing popularity amongst many schools of thought?
Well, thank you so much. First and foremost, if you look at the protest and the reaction of the security agency, I think security agency actually amplify the protest beyond normalcy. Because you have people that want to protest, and you have told them not to protest in A, B, and C environment, but you went on to cordon off to block Nyanya axis. You went on to block a lot of maybe and then just maybe Kubwa axis or what have you. Now, I think we have amplified the issue of protest beyond normalcy. Now, beyond that, in terms of keeping people in the prison, now they said they should not go to some places. Now, I expect that to be much more public. However, the right of citizens to actually protest is being eroded sort of because a lot of uh, calculation, a lot of analysis are coming up that Showore is the presidential candidate, why should he protest? The lawyer is in court, why should he protest? The fact is that it is an alienable right of the Nigerian citizen to actually protest. So I think the issue of telling now the case is now changing that they don't say the court is now saying that they do not stop them from protesting. They actually arrest them because they protest in where they said they should not protest. So the serious issue, but by and large, I think after 24 hours there should be a bail. They should be released because I'm sure the Kanu lawyer actually have a hearing in court concerning this very case. So I think they should be released and we should allow, because I recall our former president Muhammad Buhari alongside President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and others actually protested. We have what we call Occupy Nigeria. A lot of things happened under Jonathan, and it was allowed to happen. So I think there should be a balance. In as much as we wouldn't want Nigeria to also use their right to infringe on the public interest, but I think they should be allowed to exercise their right. And I will urge federal government to actually release them. Because there's a lot of coloration to it. Some people are even saying all the arrested people actually evils. So Ware himself was not part of people arrested. There a lot of coloration. But I think even the case of Nnamdi Kanu should be looked from political angle. And by political angle, they can call the leadership of the Southeast and have an agreement that will make sure that even if Kanu is out, he will stop parading himself and other reasons. So I think we need a political solution so that we will reduce this tension. You also recall that very day was also anniversary of ENSA. So a lot of things actually came up that day. So and I also urge our security agency to be much more professional when it comes to uh, protecting people that are protesting, not arresting people that are protesting.
Now, the police said one of the reasons for the arrest was the fact that some of the protesters were chanting war songs. In your fair knowledge, particularly with the court order also restricting protests along the Shehu Shagari Highway, the Presidential Villa, the National Assembly Complex, and to mention but a few of those areas that were contained in the CCT following the judge's order from the Federal High Court in Abuja. Do you think that protests should be confined to certain areas, and in the course of protest, does chanting certain songs serve as a warrant for arrest?
Now, you agree with me that there's a particular place designated for such protests and activities, which is the fronting behind the transport Hilton. But going there, it is under lock and key. So when you say people should not protest within that area, you actually open the opportunity for people to go anywhere to protest. Because I recall even that day when Shiwore is being chased, he said, let's go to Beggar. But if you had allowed them to say, don't go beyond this place that is being designated for protest, I think that would have managed the issue. So for me, I think we as security agency need to be professional in managing our protest because protest is what it's obtainable everywhere in the world. So if you want them not to protest, not to go to some areas, please permit them, open that place, allow them to actually protest in that area. Now, beyond the protest itself, they said they are chanting war song. For me, I've listened to a whole lot of some of their protests. I did not hear what song, but I don't know the interpretation of the security agency when they say war song. And I also want them to actually bring out the song so that it will not reoccurring in future when people want to actually protest. So in as much as we wouldn't want people to abuse other people opportunity, because look at the number of people that actually protested, those people can actually be managed. They can manage those that are protest. They are not that much, that government or security agencies cannot manage them. So I think going forward, as security agencies should be much more professional in terms of protecting those that are protesting, not arresting those that are protesting.
Now, it's getting trickier as to who is allowed to protest. As much as you're not a legal professional, in your best of knowledge, are lawyers for clients allowed to partake in a protest? Because I know I've seen Deji Adeyanju, who is a lawyer, on the streets, especially trying to serve as a mediator between the police and protesters during the hashtag End Hunger protest. But for Nnamdi Kanu's counsel, Ejimako, who was remanded in prison as well, Mr. Bayo Nanuga, the presidential spokesperson, is of the opinion that in terms of what the legal profession allows, Ejimako should not have been part of the protest. What's your position on this?
In fact, for me, I think he's trying to actually how do I call it, engage legal institutions or associations to actually fight the Ejimako, as it were. For me, this case of Nnamdi Kanu has been there for long. Appeal courts actually have a pronouncement on it. So if the lawyer think having go through all the legal process, it's also still find it difficult to actually release the client. So going to protest, I don't think is anything, but we should say black people protested. So protesting, I don't think is a bad thing. If you're not saying that the lawyer to the Nnamdi is also protesting, I think he has the right to actually protest. Perhaps maybe you have seen the hand that this is not legally, all the legal that he has put into it has not actually yield result. So I think that's why he embarked on it. But recall, it's not only him that was arrested. So we have even Nnamdi Kanu, our brother. In as much as I wouldn't want treason in my country, I don't want unrest in my country. I want it to be managed as to the level, to the best minimum level. You also recall that most people that are even Southeasterners, most of them are even afraid to actually come out, or they have their reason not to come out. But no matter what it is, this is illegal. Let the law actually take its course on the case. However, people have the right to actually protest.
Now, as much as the delay of the trial of Nnamdi Kanu is some of the reasons why the protesters hit the streets, there were also allegations on the originators of this protest and their ties to international sponsors. Some persons argued that it borders on the lines of a civilian coup, and that is why the entry and exit points into Abuja were locked down on the 20th of October 2025. However, it's also on debates on Showare's dual citizenship and his ties to being funded from international interest. But what do you make of these allegations and insinuations?
Right. So on the case of Showore is like a customer to Nigeria federal government in terms of protest and arrest. So government should handle Showore in its own case separately.
Hello, doctor, you still with us?
Now Showore actually take the lead, and interestingly, Showore was not even arrested. So if you know Showore had a way of getting sponsorship, why not trace it? Why not trace it? You have the DSS, you have the police, you have all the security there. Trace it and bring him to book. It will not be a good one for somebody like him to have an external sponsor to disrupt the Nigeria economy, to cause mayhem. But don't let us base it on hearsay. They have the instrument to do their findings. They do their findings and charge him to court for that.
Now, the administration of criminal justice has come into a lot of scrutiny following the provisions of the law on what is initial arraignment, which must take place 48 hours after an arrest, which in this case the police have complied with. They've been illegally arraigned before the court, but it's on the second part now where they're still remanded in prison. A lot of civil society groups led by the likes of Action Aid and Amnesty International condemning the abuse of protesters. Many in the likes of Dele Farotimi are saying that we're making a mockery of democracy. You had drawn reference to the 2015 Occupy Nigerian protest. How do you view the current administration's handling of the series of protests following the last 2 years they've been in office?
Right. So I think in democracy, sometimes agitation and protest bring some issues to the front burner. And I think that's what people are trying to do. So I think, in as much as I will continue to say, I wouldn't want Nigeria to take law into their hands. I don't want protests to bring an arrest to our dear country. However, people protest should be allowed to an extent. I said something that even the government amplified the protest beyond the protester. Because if you look at the protest itself, how many people do you have on the street that cannot be managed, that warrants blocking of everywhere and creates tension? So I think people should be much more professional to manage this protest beyond amplifying it beyond even the way we are looking at it. So for me, if you ask me, I think it's being amplified and it's been, making much more, giving more attention to the protest beyond the expectation. Because when I saw the number of people on the streets, if it is confined into the national, the front thing where it is being said, these people would have been there, they will do what they want to do, and they will go. So that you not give in to protest is not good. And we have seen, we have seen protests in Madagascar, we have seen it in Nepal, we have seen how it brings about, but we have not got to that level that Nigerian government will say no protest. We have not gotten to that level.
All right, then. Let's rest this issue and move on to yet another legislative intervention of the 10th National Assembly, starting with the red chambers. Now, the Senate has made a number of recommendations, and this is in a bid to recommend stiffer penalties for issues bordering on child defilement and rape. For child defilement, the Senate is recommending that there be a life imprisonment without the option of a fine, whilst also considering stiffer penalties for those found guilty of raping minors. What do you make of these recommendations, Dr. Aliu?
I think it's a welcome development, and it's gladding that the law is getting much more tough on such negative attitude. So I think that to bring the detriment, you also caution people to actually make sure that they know how to actually do away from such negative things. In fact, in some country like, do I remember, maybe Poland, some country, they incarcerate such people that they will not be able to be in action at all. So I think it's a good one that the law is coming at this point in time to actually bring a stiffer, a tough sanction on such. So kudos to the 10th National Assembly. I think they should not only make the law, because we have issues in Nigeria, and I must bring this to bear. The first issue is that most laws appear to be much more for how do I call it, not having its expected bites. You can see some people have been declared how do I call it, to be for death because of their level of what they committed. But the federal government and the governors failed to actually append their signature to a whole lot of things. We have also seen the issue of a level of pardon, but we must make sure that law is law and law does not have color. It's actually have the same action on whoever will actually go against the law.
Now, these recommendations to Nigeria's Criminal Code Act, from my perspective, is very necessary. When you look at the statistics, the reports that every 4 in 10 children before the age of 18 in Nigeria suffers from one form of sexual abuse or the other. But by looking at the fine lines as to what has changed, is that before now, the law recommended a maximum of 5 years sentence, and now the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, is recommending life imprisonment. He was also drawing the fine line, saying that child defilement is more serious than rape. For rape, I think it was Senator Adamu Aliero who recommended that rape punishment be 10 years. Now, Senator Adam Oshomole at that point also said that we need to also consider that rape can happen to any gender. But my question to you now is, whilst we recommend stiffer punishments for those found guilty of sexual a defilement. What about those who are now in the business of wrongly accusing persons? Do you think that the criminal code and the National Assembly should also consider a punishment for such people who wrongly accuse or falsely accuse persons of rape and during the course of a trial are found to have been peddling lies? What should be done to them in your recommendation?
All right. To my knowledge, about 3 weeks ago, I get to know rather that there is a person who actually accused a man that is actually mishandled a baby girl. And the question is that, from the look of things, the man is saying no, he has never done so, and perhaps there is a trouble between them before, and that's why the person resulted to be saying that yes, he has committed this offense. So like you rightly said, it will be so sad that those who wrongly accuse people to actually sit them down, to actually punish people, are not also being to books. I think side by side, I think even beyond the pronouncements of the National Assembly, I think that should be in court already. Because if you prove people and the court said this person is not guilty, I think the person that is not guilty have the onus, have the right to actually sue that person for defamation. I don't know how the lawyer will call it, to also actually compensate him or the person also pay for it. I think that is already in law, and it must not be only for rape. All that, even accused of stealing, accused of burglary, accused of any other thing, if the court find that the person is not guilty, the person has the right to actually sue that person who actually made him to go through. Because in this case, the person has been in custody for 3 weeks before they now said they should settle it, and all those things now happen. So the person have suffered already. So there should be a consequence for whoever wrongfully accused people.
All right, then. In keeping with legislative interventions, let's leave the red chambers and come to the green chambers now. On the floor of the green chambers, reps are also looking at passing a bill to amend the Armed Forces Act for command structure and accountability. This is in line with our current approach to tackling security situations. What do you make of this move by the House of Representatives?
I think it's quite timely, if not even late, because if you look at the cry of most governors, I've listened to several governors who said, if you allow me, if I have the command, the terrorists or the kidnapping problem in my environment, I will solve it in 3 weeks. We've seen it different. So we must look at that command critically, because if you must get command from Abuja, at every point in time, and Abuja has to also do their findings before they all call the commander in chief before anything, a lot of things would have happened. But I think we are still going wrong direction, if you ask me. Why not actually have the state police? If you ask the police, definitely the states can actually command. The governor can actually say, go and do this. Then you now have another layer that will be federal police. The federal police will now have a power, a jurisdiction power that can overtake or take over any case that they want to take over in the state. I think that would have solved the problem, because level of insecurity is becoming so much. We have seen that there's an alarm in Ekiti now that there's going to be likely to be attack and all those. So those things can only be cautioned, can only be stopped if the governors have the power. Not even the governor, even if the local government chairman also have some level of power that will say, okay, go and stop this, and the security agency will go swing into action. Until we do that, even though you give the command might still have issue, because when you give the state command, the state may want to escalate it down to the federal government. So I think we should review that by actually creating a state police.
Now, let's come to comments made by the Chief of Defense Staff. He talked about the need to protect Nigeria's territorial integrity and our sovereignty, but he also did recommend that our approach needs to take a slight redress. He's recommending more non-kinetic measures in tackling insecurity. I know it's been talked about subsurfacely, but if we're looking at it through deep structure analysis, how do you approach security that is currently ravaging the country for the last decade through a non-kinetic measure in the hopes of curbing it?
Right. That language, non-kinetic. When they mention it, most time it's become confusing. Because when you say non-kinetic, are you saying you should grant amnesty to people? Are you saying you should negotiate with the with these perpetrators of evils? Are you saying you are negotiating with kidnapper, terrorists, people that bring about insurgency? Are you saying you are going to negotiate with them? So sometimes they need to come clear. Or are you saying that you do your findings at every point in time before you take action? So sometimes it becomes so difficult when you see so, because I've seen the Castina scenario where we see most of those people with arm. When you see their arm, you know that it's serious one. You see over 200 people with guns and what have you, and come to discuss, and talk about negotiation. I don't know how long such negotiation would that negotiation actually bring. Tell them to, will it help Nigerian government to withdraw the ammunition in their hand? Will it help them to change their mind? Will it make them to come and integrate with the society? We have to start defining the word non-kinetic for me.
Now, if I'm to also look at it from this angle, particularly following his engagement in Birnin Kebbi, where General Christopher Musa met with traditional rulers, it was tagged strengthening Kebbi and finding a lasting peace to the insecurity in northern Nigeria. More from the angle of northern traditional rulers, because you raised the sensitive question there, does it involve negotiating with bandits? At the federal level, the policy is that there's no ransom payments or negotiations with terrorists. But we've seen communities who happily pay ransom, who happily pay levies to these bandits in exchange for some levity. How do we find a consensus on this position? Because it seems as though some states say that is their own way of solving their insecurity problem by negotiating with the bandits and finding a way to cohabit with them.
I think without being told, the role of the traditional ruler is to make sure that they have a peaceful community. And having peaceful community, that's to cooperate with the government at local level, government at state level, and government at federal level. So having discussion with them and making sure that they work together, it's expected. It's a given. It's what is expected. It's not what you need to be telling them. Because if you have a society, or perhaps you have an environment where it is not well secure under your purview, the traditional ruler, you're also open to a lot of problem, as it were. So for me, I think we should strengthen our technology as well to actually make sure that we are able to curb this insecurity. And I expect every person, both traditional ruler, dwellers of every environment, to be vigilant and to cooperate with the as government to make sure that they solve the problem as expected.
Now, you haven't spoken to the angle of negotiating with bandits and paying some taxes and levies to ensure that those communities stay free of their onslaught. I'd like to tie it to my next
Right.
question because people also say the recruitability of some of these communities that are poverty driven into Boko Haram is largely to blame on the state of poverty in their areas or even the illicit fundings from illegal mining. How do we juxtapose these insinuations and how do we put a position on this negotiate or not negotiate with bandits position?
Right. So for me, I like to align with federal government. Do not negotiate with bandits, because by the time you negotiate with bandits, they will get much more. We have seen those states that actually embark on negotiation. So what is the result? Result does not actually favor Nigeria or the federal government. So it's not good to negotiate with bandits. Bandit is bandit, and for them to embark on, so that means they do not mean well for Nigeria. But coming to the issue of mining, now if you look at the beginning of most of these things, you can trace it back to resources. Because of the resources, they want to actually manage, they want to harness without following the due process. And also, we have to question federal government too and state government. By the time you allow these people to this is to fester, or with time they will become more stronger, they will have more money for weapons. But as it were, I think federal government own and have the only rights to any natural resources in Nigeria. So I think that is clear, except you don't follow the law.
All right, then. Let's come to another divisive position on the situation of things in Nigeria because the presidency seems to clash with Khan on this, and even the Sultan begs to differ that there is Christian genocide in Nigeria. Bishop Kuka was saying that what the country needs now is not labeling, the labeling that the country is a country of concern, has been tagged by the USA, but solutions to ending whatever ethnic or religious clashes have lingered over time. How do you suggest that this issue be best addressed when it comes to this country of concern labeling that Nigeria is taking and the positions of different groups on Christian genocide?
Right. I actually beg to disagree with Khan because if you are following what the senator actually said in US, that means you are not actually as if you are not in Nigeria or we are in different uh, climb. It's clear that those that are perpetrating this evil, they are not a respecter of any religion. Because if you look at it very well, as far as Zamfara is concerned, Kebbi is concerned, you see that this, even Niger, if you look at these areas, they are mostly Muslim dominated. Nevertheless, we know that some Christians actually have their own share of it. But I think we should come together as Christians, as Muslims, to actually fight this bad elements in our midst and take them away from our midst. So, but for us to be saying this, they are Muslim or they are Christian, and I like to agree with Bishop Hooker, who actually sees more beyond the way we are actually seeing it. So, I think we must be careful the way we label ourselves because it's now this turn. The other, it can also turn around. So, we must caution people from making some comments that could actually bring about more trouble to our dear country.
I know we talk about a Nigeria where our strength is in our diversity, but many also argue that it has been the bane of some of the infightings that have lingered on for several decades as to who is from where or what God you serve or worship. But in the hopes of finding a lasting solution to this, do you see a Nigeria where people can look beyond ethnicity and religion in living in peace and unity?
Right. I think we have been seeing it before, if not for now. When I was much more younger, you don't even, you can hardly even differentiate a Muslim from a Christian because we coexist, we co-manage aspirations, I even went to a Christian school being a Muslim. So, and there was not any, raising of eyebrow or any forcing somebody to become one religion and what have you. So I don't think it's a difficult thing for us to do. But we must come back to solve it politically. It's most of our politicians that let you to know that you're a Christian, you're a Muslim. It's a politician that will let you know that you are from so tribe, you're from tribe. It's them that will not let you know that you're from religion and the other way around. So I think the schooling, the education must start from our elites to stop using Nigerians as a tool for their own political benefit. So for me, it's very, very possible for us to coexist and for us to respect ourselves and our religion so that we can actually coexist. It has been there before now. I don't think there is an issue. We only need that reorientation and leadership to achieve such coexistence.
All right, then. Let's talk on one final thing before we say our goodbye in Niger. Reports from the Federal Road Safety Corps is that over 35 persons lost their lives following attempts to scoop fuel from a falling tanker. Now we hear that also 46 are also injured as well. It's becoming a recurrent decimal where, especially along that route, tankers continue to fall. Nupeng has blamed it on the state of roads. I remember that there was also a regulation on restricting certain capacities of tankers above 40,000 liters, if I recall correctly, from plying the roads with petroleum products. As we express our condolences to the family and government of Niger State, let's get your remarks on this.
Right. So I think my condolences to the victim, the family of the victim, the people of Niger State, and Nigeria as a whole. But the fact is that it's as if we are not learning lessons from things that have been happening. If you recall, the same Niger State, this should be the third time that such thing will happen. And I could see some, even stations have done what we call CSR by bringing about some adverts that will bring that tell people that don't get to scoop any fuel from a falling tanker. run far away from it. I think we should all try to continue to educate our people on it. However, let me also put this blame on government. I expected that at every local government there must be a police, there must be a soldier, there must be a civil defense, there must be a road safety. I expect that. So immediately that happens, I think that place should be cordoned off immediately, because there's no way to happen like this one, take time, people scooping over time before that explosion actually occur. So immediately such thing happens, I think federal government should also have that command that they should rush into that area and stop people from going close. Actually that should have solved our casualties, and the issue of the people that decide to wanted to die or decide to die by scooping fuel. They should also know that we don't have a second chance in this world. Even though there's some level of, if you look at the report, 35 died, 40 injured. Those that are injured, it could be beyond where they can actually fend for themselves again. So I think we should take it as an education for people, as individual. Government should take responsibility and start actually, educating people and actually have a squad that will keep giving that cordon off that area. Then if you look at our road, I like to talk about our road too, because you cannot talk about that without talking about our road. Our road are so bad, especially the Niger State road, very bad that could fall any vehicle, not even that. Then you also talked about following the rules. I think you know there must be a rule by the road safety, and the rule must not only be on the road. You must start from the educating those organizations that have truck, that this is the size of truck you expect on the road, this is what they should not do. We must continue, because that truck must have taken off from somewhere and must have passed one or two road safety before you get to that level. So we must start actually implementing our laws and make sure that it's actually effective, because if the law is effective on its own, that person, that driver, the tanker will not proceed to that level.
Well, Doctor, it seems as though we'd also need your input on some political stories this morning. But as we continue to condole and raise awareness on the dangers of fuel scooping from falling tankers, we need to go on a commercial break. When we return from this break, we'll turn our attentions to the PDP chairmanship race on the one hand, and we'll also look at the ruling All Progressive Congress. It seems as though Lagos has come to a consensus. Key names, the governor Sanwo-Olu, Ambode, and the likes have converged to endorse President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for his second term. Dr. Alius Elias would be with us to deliberate on this after this short commercial break. Stay tuned.
The global business is never static. Watch the market report on ADBN TV for business information, latest happening, business deals, government economic policies, stock, crude oil and commodity trading, financial upstick and downstick, and the world of organized private sector. The market report showing on ADBN TV 1 to 2 p.m. Monday to Friday. The market report, bringing you up to speed in the business world.
It doesn't take a pandemic or an epidemic to know that clean hands save lives. Hand washing is essential anytime, anywhere to protect your health. So keep washing your hands, not just when they're dirty, but even on the go. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep your hands clean.
Step into the heartbeat of the world where news meets real talk. From breakthroughs in diplomacy to humanitarian challenges and scientific milestones, Global Digest takes you beyond the headlines and straight to the heart of the matter. I am Amma Marcus. Be a part of the world unfolding stories at 3 p.m. on ADBN, channel 258 on DSTV, and Star Times, channel 140. Global Digest, your window to the world's current affairs, only on Advocate Broadcasting Network.
Well then, thanks for staying with us on ADBN TV's flagship program Morning Express. Still online is our virtual guest, Dr. Aliu Elias, who would now speak to some political stories making the rounds, and would start with the People's Democratic Party, PDP. News making rounds is that come the 31st of October, the party would know its fate ahead of its planned convention in Ibadan. Meanwhile, the party has come to a consensus on the zoning of the chairmanship position. Names like Lamido, Turaki and Makarfi are headline names as those leading for the race in the chairmanship position. We'll come back to you now. Doctor, let's get your thoughts on this. The PDP, many had written them off, saying that they would not be able to put their house in order in time to challenge the APC going into 2027. Do you think that this would be the case, or would the October 31st serve as a telling time on the position of the convention and the party's chairmanship position?
Well, it is a fine time for PDP, and this is the time they need to do more to ensure they sustain their little efforts as well. But we cannot take it from them. PDP is still the number one opposition party in Nigeria. They have some governors, even though some are living in Joe, but they still have some governors. And I want to believe that it's possible they will achieve their convention. The only thing is the outcome. We hope after the convention, they will not continue to still have some legal challenges and some problems. If they can actually put a stop to their problems by that convention, I think going forward, there's still a party to actually think about. Because if you look at them, they have people in every nook and cranny of Nigeria, and that is pretty difficult for other political parties. We've seen that during the Labour Party, during the last election, we've seen Labour Party that they don't even have presence in some places. And ADC is struggling to actually come in. So the opposition party, the leading one is still PDP. So I think they can still do more.
Well, talking about the convention, Governor Shea Makinde seems to be a proponent of that convention, whilst the FCT Minister, Bryson Nyesom Wike, claims that his faction of the party are not in the knowledge of such arrangement. I recall that the former Senate President, Bukola Saraki, His Excellency, was given the onus and responsibility of reconciling different factions and getting the PDP's house in order so as to have these convention. Quite recently, it took a downturn again. The party's secretary, Honorable Ayanwu, also cried foul, saying that his signature had been forged. The party dismissed those claims, but it seems as though if it's not the Governor Shea Makinde versus Wike faction, the Honorable Simon Ayanwu faction have something to say. That doesn't seem to mean that the party is all together. Is there anything to deduce from this, or it's normal for political parties to have some of these infightings, in your opinion?
Right. So if you notice, virtually every party have internal wranglings, and the wranglings is because of negative externalities, as it were. So for me, I think the PDP need to be strategic. If you know that somebody is trying to make you not succeed, you have to also double your effort to ensure that you actually succeed. So I think I see them succeeding if they can actually place some people in their place. For me, for a long time, I think they should have suspend some members of their party. Because some members are actually
suspend,
there to actually make
suspend,
them, yes.
Doctor. Someone like the
Yes,
FCT
yes.
minister has dead the party. He said no one can suspend him, that indeed he is the PDP.
That's what I'm saying. We are saying the same thing. So they should have
Can
had that
such a
courage to
situation,
suspend. Let him.
who then suspends him?
They should right now. I'm thinking they should suspend some members of their political party and let those members go and trash it out, because some of them have actually put up some character and attitude that shows that they are undermining their political party. So if the PDP fail to have that courage to actually suspend some people, I think they will continue to have problems.
But when you have persons who seem to be bigger than institutions and have repeatedly said, what's the worst that can happen? Do you think that such suspensions would hold any ground, even if pronouncements like that are made? Yes, I know the likes of Senator Dino Melaye have had such decisions easily reached on them. But do we have some persons that are larger than the party in this case?
Right, and that's why I clearly made mention that they should have that courage. So if other person have courage of undermining your party, you should also have the courage to actually suspend. And if you also think there's an element within that actually supports such person, please proceed to suspend that person. Because if you don't, if you're not decisive at this point in time, I foresee much bigger problem for them even after the convention.
Now, let's talk about the allegations of forgery as cried foul by Honorable Samuel Anyanwu. Now, he's also said that the DSS is invited to look into the matter, but the PDP put out a statement saying that he was in the know and appended his signature to all of those documents. When issues like that spring up, are we privy to the findings of such investigations?
Well, I would like such investigation to be tested in a law court, simply because if someone say you did not sign and someone say you sign and you are denying, so court should interpret who is actually not saying the truth. But for me, if you know somebody is negating on what you are doing and you are convinced that he has another interest that is going to affect your political party, please proceed to find a way for him to go out. You know, if you try political solution, it does not work, I think you have to put an action into it.
Now let's come to the APC, particularly in Lagos. We saw a grand ceremony yesterday. The state governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, leading the likes of former governors Ambode, and it was on the endorsement for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's second term, his re-election. Many have argued that the decisions to begin endorsements seem to be tied to pre-campaign and kind of distracts focus from governance. Do you think that it is well within the rights of such persons to endorse their principle and begin preparations for the 2027, even, would I say, technically 2 years before the polls?
Well, for me, I think they should do it more. Recall they suffered defeat in the last election from Labour Party, so they have to start on time, not to suffer
Talking about
from
defeat,
that defeat. So
defeat
I
in
think
Lagos, in Lagos, right?
yes,
You mean?
there was a defeat in Lagos in presidential election where Labour Party actually defeat APC in presidential elections. So I think they need to start on time. I'm sure that they start canvassing for more vote. Perhaps, you know, with the level of Nigeria now, if they don't start on time, it's a problem. But my own concern is that I don't know the role of INEC in this type of case, because for me, I think governance is being distracted by doing this. Because if you take your time to arrange, organize, you know, and you just want to declare support for somebody, that would have taken you away from the level of governance. Because I also use resources to bring about that program. So I don't know the role of INEC in that. For me, but in other way, and we have seen other states, we've seen governor of Kogi State and is would I say godfather now, former governor Yabilo. We've seen other states actually coming up with such a declaration. So I think it's not too much for state like Lagos to do it, because it's actually their own.
All right, now, speaking to the issues of 2027, there's also the proposal for shifting the elections to November 2026. Part of the argument is to give time for transitions and whatnot. Although that recommendation has been stepped down at the red chambers, what do you make of the whole initiative?
Well, for me, that's will be too much, because I recall that we have agreed that every court cases, I agreed rather that every court cases must be settled before someone will take office, because you will see that some people will be in government already for 1 year, and somebody is contesting the election. We have also seen about off-cycle election. That's what brought about most of the off-cycle, especially governorship, whereby somebody will go to court. They will say, no, you are not the rightful winner. This is the rightful winner. So I think if we can be able to solve it, but to give it 6 months, I think is too much. We can have some, reduce as it were. If you have election in February before handover in May, we can as well put up or put to rest all such cases and have a concentrated governance by whoever actually declare winner. But and it's also an apology that we are now relying on court to declare our winners. Why not prove and present an election that will be credible, to the extent that even the loser, we agree that is a loser?
Part of the promises that the current INEC chairman, you just took from his words there, the current INEC chairman has promised, he says he would conduct elections that losers will congratulate the winners. But he has a first litmus test, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree. The Anambra Guba polls coming up, 8th of November. 2.82 million voters have been cleared to participate in that election by INEC. Many Nigerians are key on seeing if some of the technological improvements that the outgone INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, brought into being in terms of the beavers and IREV. How much of a test is this, in your opinion, for the current INEC chairman?
Well, I'm in doubt if this will be a litmus test for him, especially the Anambra election, because I'm not sure he has assumed office up till now, and we have less than 30 days, if I'm correct. Yes, less than November. If it's November 8th, he has not assumed office, so it may not be, be able to actually, put things in proper perspective. But however, the acting chairman actually have an idea of what is going on. I think it's an opportunity for her to prove herself that yes, so actually make things actually work for Nigeria. But for me, I don't think Abokita will be able to actually have the solid input in the upcoming election.
All right, now let's talk about the electoral laws in itself, because the Electoral Act of 2022 is undergoing a lot of recommendations from INEC, from the European Mission Observatory Mission. It's currently on the floor of the National Assembly. There's supposed to be procedural proceedings for it to scale second reading, but recommendations that are pertinent to ensuring that our processes regain public trust border on the establishment of a National Electoral Offences Commission to punish electoral offences and serve as deterrents for those who engage in vote buying, voter intimidation, and all forms of electoral malpractice, but seems not to have been really the front burner of some of these deliberations. What do you care to say about that?
Right. So for me, I think ordinarily I'm of the opinion that INEC should be unbundled. Unbundled in the fact with the fact that they are doing a lot at that commission. So if they can be unbundled, I think such electoral offences commission can actually come up on its own to actually look into this such problems. Because if you look at it, a lot of electoral malpractice has been there, and if you look at the overwhelming nature of INEC, it will be pretty difficult for them. So I think it's a good one that we're looking into our processes. Ordinarily we are a growing democracy, so I expect us to keep strengthening our processes. And I'm sure Professor Joash Ojuamukuta will also be able to have his inputs to the ongoing processes. So I think it's a good one that we're having review, and we are trying to actually, continue to amend that process, because process bring about credibility.
Now, Doctor, you talked about unbundling INEC. Most of those recommendations also say that INEC should lose its powers of regulating political party registrations and whatnot. Ahead of 2027, you've seen the barrage of applications that have greeted the electoral umpires table as to those seeking to be registered as political parties, and with the hopes of increasing the current 18 political party structure in the frame of what people are saying. If you look, judging by the current applications, over 100, if you remove this powers from INEC, what organization or commission or body would be best saddled with regulating political parties?
I think it should be created and to be given name after the creation. So it's about we can bring a different acronym for it, but it's on the National Assembly to look into that properly to create a body that will actually regulate those electoral commission. But I need to tell you this. I don't see this new proposal coming to bear in this administration, in this 10th assembly and this present government. Because we recall the same thing happens to Muhammad Buhari. I think the same thing happens to Jonathan. It was only Jonathan that actually made agree on some adjustments, and later I think that actually affected him. So from the past experience, I don't think President even Bola Ahmed Tinubu will want to append the signature of such. Maybe after he eventually emerged after 2027, maybe that will be considered.
Why do you think there's that fear? People say it might be the reason why the former President Goodluck Jonathan lost. If you allow for certain electoral reforms, if you make a process more credible, should you fear allowing the collective votes of Nigerians and their choice speak, even if it's not in your interest of staying in office?
It's quite ideal for you not to have the fear, for you to be able to strengthen it. But if you look at your own advantage, it's politics. So politics is for you to see what actually works for you. And when you are in the hands of a fear, you look at it from that perspective. And beyond president himself, remember his political party will have input. And they like to tell him what to do, what not to do, and guide him as well. So and that it is on that premise I'm bringing up that position.
Now, let's shift focus and come back to some of the issues affecting the average Nigerian. And from your expertise in the field, we've seen successive months with declines in the inflationary rate as published by the National Bureau of Statistics. But when you look at the current reality of Nigerians in terms of how much disposable income there is and being able to cope with the harsh economic realities, and even where the naira dollar value is, it seems as though this stats on paper do not reflect to the actual realities on ground. It's the notion that we have received from several feeders from Nigerians. But in your analysis, what's your position on the current state of our economy, and are we seeing a reflection of the drop in inflation in the lives of Nigerians?
Right. So I think the fact also means that we have seen economic stability, we have seen macroeconomic stability being positive, macroeconomic indices being positive. But I will agree with you that it has not actually reflected on people's life. But if you look at our inflation and look at what is bringing the hardship, some of them are imported inflation. And if you look at imported inflation itself, it's a problem on its own. That simply means we are not a productive economy. So we're supposed to produce to actually bring about development in Nigeria, and we also are by law supposed to have much more disposable income. Looking at the indicators, but the fact is that things are actually coming now. Markets, people don't, but the problem is that people don't have that purchasing power. So that simply means that the value of what we have in our hand is also still having issues. So government must do more. You can also see the price of petroleum product is actually going up. So if you look at it, the price of transport has not actually the main cause of that problem. What is actually eroding people's purchasing power has not actually been tackled. And what is that? Those things, the cost of transportation, the cost of energy, the cost of food in the market. Until we actually work on that, that's when we'll have the impact. By and large, I'm foreseeing the first quarter of next year, maybe those things would have been much more stable. The lag period would have come to bear and would have see some level of strong purchasing power from people.
Now, when you talk about manufacturing or shifting to a more productive based economy, I believe we're talking about even the reports in terms of contributions to our GDP. Currently now, we can brag of having the largest single train refinery in Africa and the 7th largest refinery in the world in terms of Dangote refinery and petrochemical. But when you look at the other productive components, take for instance the saying that no nation can thrive without an active steel manufacturing company, ours is more bond. How many of such key investments would take Nigeria to stabilize its economy from a GDP contributing perspective?
Right. So if you look at our GDP, yes, it is appreciating and we are glad for that. But I must also bring this to your knowledge that most of the things you are seeing are much more of a service sector oriented. I want to say service sector. If you look at our GDP, the most leading part of it is our service sector. And when we say service sector, we're talking about portfolio investment, investment in stock, investment in banking instruments. Now, but if you come to the reality, which has to do with the agricultural sector and industrial sector actually give birth to manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sector actually give birth to employment. It brings about more productivity. So these two things, agriculture and manufacturing sector, are supposed to take the lead for a country that is much more agrarian in nature, that also have more population. Manufacturing sector, industrial sector, and agricultural sector are supposed to take the lead. But now we are seeing service sector, and that's why we are not seeing the reality of the numbers of the GDP we are seeing. So we must make sure that those sectors, those real sectors that will bring real investment, that will bring real employment, are actually up and doing. So until we have that in place, which will be pretty difficult, we'll only be having appreciating, having a high GDP that does not reflect the economic life of people.
Well, quite interesting points there. Let's come to the new tax regime ahead of January 1st, 2026. Talking about GDP contributions, many nations around the world do enjoy healthier contributions through their tax system in terms of what the nation puts out as its GDP. There are going to be tax exemptions for persons on personal income tax who earn below 800,000 a year. Some of the high points of this, but overarchingly, there's still some skepticism in the air from Nigerians as to some of the gains of the new tax reforms. In summary, looking at it, because if we have to look at all the four parts, how much of optimism do you have ahead of the new tax regime?
Well, I think I do have cautious optimism on the premise that first and foremost, you said anybody who earn less than 800,000 annually will be exempted from pay. Now, this for me, it won't be effective because look at it very well. How many Nigerians are any less than 800,000? I am of the opinion that it should be shifted to 1.5 million or 2 million naira annually so that at least people can have much more disposable income, much more purchasing power if this can be shifted to that level. Now, the positive part of it is that small businesses can be able to scale, from small to medium, from medium they can actually scale up the more. It's a good one. However, it simply means that more Nigerians are going to be in the tax net when it is January. So these are the mixed expectation they were expecting by January. But I think reform is good because it's after the implementation of it, there could be amendments anytime, and that's the responsibility of the National Assembly. By the time they see the way it's going and they think it's not actually doing what we think it should do, or there is need for amendment, amendment can only someone. Let's see it running first.
Well, 2026, a lot of cautious optimism, if I'm to borrow from your words this morning, going forward. But overarchingly now, let's speak to the notions of policy somersaults. This administration has been accused of having policy somersaults or having to renege on certain policy statements. The most recent in line with the presidential pardon for 175 people, which when greeted by uproar, the Attorney General of the Federation said that it was undergoing a review process. Is it the notion, in your opinion, that some certain policy directions of the government need to have some fine-tuning before they are formally announced to Nigerians to avoid the growing perception by Nigerians? Or do you think that in line with the procedural outline for such decisions to be reached, the government is on track?
Right. So ordinarily, president have the power to actually do that, but the only thing is that the category of people that are involved in that pardon list, that list to actually grant clemency to people, that's the concern. Because when you see people that accused of murder and you're saying they should go, people that are accused of kidnapping, you're saying they should go, people that are accused of drug trafficking, convicted, and you're saying they should go, it becomes a serious concern for citizens. But I think the federal government said they have not yet released anyone that is also going through a kind of vetting and reviewing. So I think they should review because it should be a bad optics for us. It should be a disservice. It should be a discouragement to maybe NDLEA, even the judges, the even the police, it should make nonsense of all their efforts.
Well, Doctor, I must thank you for your time on the program this morning. We appreciate you for lending your thoughts to discussions and issues in the news this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
Have a nice day, sir.